You have to create something that makes you. Amazon does not want tens of millions of crap books with no human heart in them. Just what a brand does, and this is really powerful, Daniel. A brand makes you different even if you're...
Raymond Aaron is a New York Times best-selling author and longtime mentor in branding and wealth education. He'll show you promotion that actually moves the needle.
And as soon as the Gutenberg press came, all of a sudden there were thousands of books. And so when people wrote a book, it was just... This is very sad. The number one cause of failure is...
Welcome to the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast, where we connect you with the world's top entrepreneurs, investors, and thought leaders so you can take control over your financial future and build a life of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Daniel Wood, and today's guest is a true legend in the world of personal growth and success, Raymond Aaron. Raymond is a New York Times top 10 best-selling author, has written over 147 books, has mentored millions around the world on how to elevate their brand, multiply their income, and create lasting success. Our mission at the Swedish Wealth Institute is always to support you on this journey and help connect you to the top people in the world. For that reason, we have a very exciting free gift to open our episode today, our Wealth Archetype quiz. It's a quick science-backed tool that helps you discover your unique wealth personality so you can identify your strengths, overcome your blocks, and create your personal path to financial freedom. You'll find the link here in the show notes. Go take it after you listen to the episode. Now get ready to take notes because Raymond's insights will completely shift how you think about money, identity, and success. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode or a free resource like this one. Let's dive in. Raymond Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation today with Raymond Aaron, please make sure you follow and subscribe right now because we've got even more world-class mentors coming your way. And because we believe in rewarding action takers like yourself, I've got a special ending gift here for you. You can claim your free ticket to our upcoming Your Path to Financial Freedom, where you'll learn directly from global experts like Robert Kiyosaki, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Jack Canfield, John DeMartini, John Azareth, Janet Atwood, Marcy Shimoff, and many other absolutely amazing speakers. You'll be able to connect with our community and design your path to true financial independence. Just go to swedishwealthinstitute.com/events so you can find the next event in your time zone, because we do time zones both in Europe, North America, and over Asia Pacific. So you can find the next one that fits your schedule. Now, make sure you don't miss our next Swedish Wealth Institute podcast episode because it features Ron White. Ron is the two-time U.S. memory champion. He's going to teach you how to unlock your memory, accelerate your learning, and think faster. Skills that will transform the way you work, learn, and lead. So please subscribe, share this episode with Raymond, with anyone who you think needs it, and I'll see you at the summit and at the next event. I'm Daniel Wood, and this is the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast, where your journey to financial freedom begins. You've written 147 books. Why do you think it's so important for an entrepreneur or a business owner to have written a book?
Well, first of all, I don't recommend they write 147 books. I do admit I am an overachiever, but a book is the most powerful thing you can do to yourself to build yourself up. And an example is, let's take something really dignified, like, I don't know, neurosurgeon. It takes like 15 years to become a neurosurgeon, and it's very distinguished and everybody looks up to them. But amongst neurosurgeons, they're just drowning in the sea of sameness. They're all the same. And all dentists are the same, and all shoe repairmen are the same. But what a brand does, and this is really powerful, Daniel, A brand makes you different, even if you're not. So if there's one brain surgeon that has a particular technique and no one knows that technique, it's like, Jim, okay, he's branded. But not everybody can stand out according to their talent. And so I've done this so many times with so many of my clients. And I'll give you an example. I had a dentist in London, England, who had just graduated as a dentist, and he was just a dentist. He wasn't at the top of the class or the bottom of his class. And he took out a huge loan from the bank, and he rented a facility, did all the leasehold improvements, brought in an x-ray machine and a chair, and he was heavily in debt, and he didn't have enough patients for his chair. And so he knocked on doors in the neighborhood, and he sent out flyers in the neighborhood. And finally, he hired me, and I said, well, all your flyers are no good because you're just a dentist. And basically everybody already has a dentist. So why should they switch from a dentist that they already have to a dentist that they don't know? He said, well, I didn't stand at the top of my class. I don't have any particular skills. I said, doesn't mean you can't be branded. And so I branded him as the smiling dentist. And he said, do you mean that I smile more than my fellow dentists? Does it mean that my patients smile more than other dentist patients? I said, no, it's just a brand. Just like Nike says, just do it, but no one knows what they are supposed to do. It's just a great sounding brand. And as soon as he accepted the brand, and as soon as he wrote the book, The Smiling Dentist, his chair filled up and overfilled. He had to buy another chair and hire another dentist who actually graduated higher in the class than he did. But he was branded as the Smiling Dentist. And you can imagine, Daniel, two mummies sitting on a bench looking at their little kids playing in a playground. And one of them says, well, I have to take little Billy to the dentist. You know how they all hate dentists. And the other mummy says, oh, mine's the Smiling Dentist. Oh, I want to go to the Smiling Dentist. But it's just a brand. And the funny thing is, a book or a dentist tool or anything else lives in the physical universe, but a brand lives in the spiritual universe and is much more powerful, far, far more powerful. And so this one dentist's income skyrocketed, and he's been ever grateful to me.
What would you say to people who go, well, that sounds dishonest? Like, if he wasn't a special dentist, but he's making out to be, isn't that disingenuous?
Well, I'm not saying that he's the world's best dentist. I'm just saying he's the Smiling Dentist. Right. So what does just do it mean? It's Nike's brand. It's worth $1 billion. The brand, not the manufacturing facilities or the shoes. Just the brand is worth $1 million. But just do what? Just keep beating your wife? What? Just keep eating ice cream? It has actually no meaning, and yet it's worth $1 billion.
So if I'm an entrepreneur and thinking, all right, I like this idea, I want to fill my chair, how do I know what my brand should be, and how do I make that decision?
Well, it's not an easy question. If there was an answer, like if every psychiatrist, let's take psychiatrists just for an example, if there was one brand that would work for every psychiatrist, then every psychiatrist would have the same brand and it wouldn't work. So it has to be something unique. It has to be something, for example, one of my clients was a mortgage broker. And I said to him, what do people really, really want? And he said, a mortgage. I said, no, think deeply. What do they really want? And he said, they really want to have no mortgage, but they're obligated to have a mortgage because they can't pay $1 million all cash for a house. Yeah. And so I branded him as the unmortgage broker, as the world's only unmortgage broker. And his tagline was, get rid of it. Not go get it, get rid of it. And people were startled and they loved it and they smiled and they drove across town to use him because he actually gave courses on how to get rid of your mortgage. And any mortgage broker could do that, but none of them did.
Well, I love that question you had him ask. What do they really want? Like, what is the process you bring people through to identify, here I can stand out in my industry?
Well, typically, you don't even actually have to have a special tagline like I just gave you a couple examples of, but you have to write a book. The book shocks people, and it shocks them more than a Nobel Prize. It shocks them more than an Olympic medal. It shocks them more than a world record. And I think it's because in the year 1500, when the Gutenberg press came about, and rich people, like very rich merchants, could publish a book. Before the year 1500, Daniel, there were 10 books in the whole world. 10. Right now, there's 1 million that get printed every day. But before 1500, like from ancient Egypt up to Christ, then up to the year 1500, there were only 10 books, and they were all written by kings or popes. Because it took so long, the scribe would have to write with ink on paper that it wasn't smooth and it'd be blotchy. And it would take years for the Pope or the king to dictate a whole book. And then there was only one copy. Then they had to have scribes look at that one book and then copy it. So there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 copies. And so everybody knew every book that was ever written. And as soon as the Gutenberg press came, all of a sudden there were thousands of books. And so when people wrote a book, it was just startling. And today, 500 years later, it's still amazing. People are shocked. I teach my clients to say, I am the author of the upcoming book while they're writing their book. And everybody they say it to says, wow. And then when I publish my clients' books, I also give them an award. And so when I publish their book, I teach them to say, I am the award-winning author of the published book. And everyone says, wow. It's as if they all go to the same wow school and repeat wow. But if somebody says, I am a neurosurgeon or I won a Nobel Prize, they don't say wow. They say wow about a book. It's the strangest thing. It's the best way to increase your income. It's the best way to stand out. It's the best way to have a taller posture.
So how do I identify, let's say I want to write a book now, and like you've given us some really good tagline examples and that question, what are they? What is your industry after? How do I identify what my book should be about? How do I go about making that initial decision?
Okay, so let me give you an example. Jennifer Chichi lives in England, and she's a nutritionalist. And a nutritionalist can help somebody with cancer, can help somebody with diabetes, can help a young person, an old person, a thin person, a fat person, whatever, sick, healthy. She can do anything because she's a nutritionalist. She studied it and she knows how to design a eating program for whatever your issue is. And that's why she couldn't get any business, because she could do anything for anybody.
Yeah.
And that means she did nothing for nobody, because they couldn't get a handle on it. There was nothing specific to grab onto. And so I worked with her and I said, what is the biggest problem you've had? Like, what is your issue? Like, what is it that you've done that's special? And she says, well, I've got a big problem. My kids go to school every day. And if I make them a really healthy lunch, they'll just trade it for Pop-Tarts. But if I make them a Pop-Tart lunch, they'll eat it, but I don't want them to eat it. So there's this serious balancing act that it has to be healthy, but not too healthy, or they'll trade it for junk food. And I said, that's your problem with your own kids? So I branded her the Lunchbox Doctor. And she wrote a book called The Lunchbox Doctor. And now, anytime the BBC, that's the national radio and television in England, needs any comment from a nutritionalist about anything about food and health, they call her, because when it relates to students, when it relates to children in school, they call her because she's the Lunchbox Doctor. And all the other nutritionalists in England are scratching their heads saying, why is she getting all the publicity? I can help mummies make lunches for kids. but they also can help people with cancer and help people with diabetes. And so they're not known. She's known as the lunchbox doctor. And so she gets all the publicity. And then she wrote a book called The Lunchbox Doctor. So you don't have to have a genius brand in order to write a book. You write a book about whatever's in your heart, because many people know that I'm a New York Times top 10 bestselling author. But the funny thing is that they say, wow, and they say, that's amazing. But they rarely ask what the book was. And they also don't buy it and read it. They're just amazed. And so I did write a book that became New York Times top 10, and I am proud of that. And I get lots of publicity and lots of branding because of it. And it's how I introduce myself. When I get on stage, I say, hello, my name is Raymond Aaron. I'm a New York Times top 10 best-selling author. Indeed, I've written 147 books, but I do admit I am an overachiever. That's my line. I say it at the beginning of every speech, and it rivets people's attention. They say, oh my gosh. So they're amazed by it. And then there's humor, and so they laugh, and it works. You have to create something that makes you stand out. Because most people, when they get up on stage, they just mumble. They say, oh gosh, it's raining out. I didn't know if I could get here. They mumble something irrelevant. And you need to start with something strong. You need to differentiate yourself in some way. And if you have a book, the book does it for you. The book is the most exciting thing you could do to increase your posture, to increase your branding, and increase your income.
Let's continue that process of actually how to write a book. So let's say I have a business, I want to brand it, I want to write a book. Where do you start? Like, how do you help a student start doing this?
Yes, there's some magical questions I ask every one of my clients. The first is, what's your topic? And I ask them, just look in your heart. What is it that you really want to talk about? And let's take an example of a plumber. So you'd think a plumber would write a book about plumbing, and he might. That would be a good idea. And I'll give you an excellent example of another one of my clients. Yes, he cuts grass in the summer and he shovels snow in the winter for homeowners. And he did write about his career, about his business, but he called it, Don't Hire a Snow Remover Until You Read This Book. And he filled the book with examples of how snow removers cheat homeowners. So if they just read the title, or actually if they read the book, they go running to him and pay more than the going rate in that town because they don't want to be cheated. So there's an example of how you could write a book about your job in order to create more income for yourself, but you could write it on anything. For example, one of my clients, he has a job, he has a career, he's distinguished, but he went through this ugly, ugly divorce, and he was able to figure out some ways to handle it. And so he wrote a book on how to handle an ugly divorce. And the book is selling like crazy. Now, he's not making any money from the book. Nobody wants to attend a big workshop of other men who are going through an ugly divorce. He's not making any money from it. But most people don't ask him what he wrote a book about. He just says, I'm the author of an upcoming book. And people say, wow. And then they want to join his business, even though the book's got nothing to do with it. So you look inside your heart to find the topic, whether it's in your business or some other experience that you've had in your life. And then I ask them, who's your target audience? Like, who are you really writing for? And the obvious dumb answer is, oh, everybody could use this information. I say, look, there's no business in the world that's that pompous. Starbucks doesn't want everybody. Starbucks wants people who want to use 19 syllables to order a coffee and are glad to overpay for it. And Walmart wants people who, if they want toilet paper, will buy a mountain and a half of toilet paper to save 1 penny a roll. So I go to Starbucks all the time, and I've never been to Walmart. But I don't want to save a penny and have to buy a mountain of toilet paper. So I get them to understand who their target audience really, really is. And then the next is, what is the purpose for the reader? Like, now you know who you're talking to. What do you want them to have or be or do by the end of reading their book? And that causes them a lot of consternation. They think about it deeply. And then I ask them another question, which shocks them completely. What is the purpose for the author?
Mhm.
And they never think about that. People are so magnanimous that they want to help others. So they think of what they want to write the book about, but they never think of what they want. And if you want to make money at a book, then you could make some money by selling the book, but not that much. You really have to do something with the book, like hold a workshop or a retreat. And a retreat is simply a workshop in an exotic location, like maybe the Caribbean or something, or give speeches, paid speeches, or coaching. And coaching is one of the most common ways to make a lot of money, which authors never think about before their book comes out. But when people read your book on a particular topic and admire you as a hero or an admirable person or a knowledgeable person in that subject, they want you to give them personalized attention. And so they'll say, I'll pay you 10,000 euro. I'll pay you 20,000 pounds sterling. I'll pay you 30,000 US dollars. And the authors usually shock, say, well, I'm not a coach. I don't know how to coach anybody. But yes, everybody has coached. Everybody helps their kids. Everybody helps their parents. Everybody helps other people in their sports team or their church group or whatever. They just don't call it coaching. They call it helping or talking because they've never charged for it. But a reader of your book is willing to give you lots of money for that.
Right. So we want to identify what is it I'm passionate about and want to share with the world? What's my topic? Who am I telling about this? What is it I want them to learn? And then what is my outcome that I'm going for? Is there anything else that we need to know before we start
That's
writing?
the first 4 steps. There's 100 steps. I don't want to go through all 100 steps, but my technique is this. I've looked at people who failed in writing their book, which is something like 90% of people. You talk to people about a book and they put their hand over their heart and they say with glee, I've had a book inside me for 20 years. Well, I don't know why they're so gleeful. That's just, observed procrastination. But somehow they're proud of it. And I've looked at them and I've spoken to people who failed. I've spoken deeply to them. And what I've found is the people who fail don't get 90% of the way and then stop. They don't get 50% of the way and stop. They actually get 0% of the way. They don't even start because it's so daunting to eat a whole elephant. And so I've created my book writing program in tiny little bits. And so I give a tiny assignment that takes maybe a minute to do, and they do it. And then I applaud them. And they're so proud of themselves that they've made a step. And then I give them another assignment, which takes maybe 6 minutes, and they get it done, and they're shocked.
You've started using a lot of AI in helping authors create their book. How does AI work when writing a book? How do you use it?
Okay, so let's talk about the bad news and the good news of artificial intelligence. The bad news is that Amazon does not want their book offerings to be loaded with AI junk. And AI junk is a book that's completely written by AI. And I've had clients, just a few days ago, a realtor came up to me and he said, look, I need a book on real estate. I don't care what it says. Any book on real estate is fine. Each chapter should be like, the first one should be location, location, location. The second one should be on getting a mortgage. Just the obvious stuff. Just write it. Just do it. I don't even care what it says as long as it says something that's correct. And he's actually right in the sense that he just wants to say that he wrote a book, and that will dignify him. But Amazon doesn't want that. Amazon does not want tens of millions of crap books with no human heart in them, just dead AI words. So that's the bad way to use AI. The correct way is to talk into a recording, like make an audio recording and then give a prompt to AI saying, below is the text of my experience doing something or other, trying to fix my own plumbing, I don't know, going to a dentist, whatever it is. And you say, please clean it up and please put a question at the end so the reader will be able to engage with me more, whatever the prompt is. And when you put your heart into talking your story, then ask AI to clean it up or put it in a language that a university student could understand, or put it in a language that a 10-year-old could understand, or use a little more humor than I have in my ability. You can use AI to amplify or specify or clean up or grammarize or correct the spelling of, but you can't use it as the primary to write the book for you.
So it still has to come from me, because that's been one of my fears as a potential author, is even though I might know what the story I want to tell, but to kind of create the world, like that feel, like when you tell a story in a book, and a really good book, you can smell it, you can see it, you can feel it, and it comes to life. It's like when you read, it's like you're seeing a movie in your head. You're not seeing the words anymore. I don't have that level of writing ability. So that's where I would then use AI to bring out my story and then color it in that quality. Is that correct?
Partially. What you're saying is more appropriate to a fiction, to a novel. For a novel, you do have to create a universe like Harry Potter. You do have to create it, and you do have to use detail. You have to use a lot of descriptive words, a lot of adjectives. And people like that. And people love reading a 900-page fiction book. They love it because once they get into the universe, they want to stay there. They want to enjoy it. Yeah. But for a nonfiction, you don't need writing ability. You don't have to make it flowery. You don't have to have them live in your universe, because you're just giving instructions. If you want to write a book on dental health, if you want to write a book on fixing your own plumbing, if you want to write a book on fixing your own wiring or electricity in your home, people don't want any flowery language. They just want the goods. They want the straight goods, and they want a short book with clear, easy to read writing. And so you don't have to have all this glorious writing ability that you're alluding to a minute ago in a nonfiction book.
Right. So we can get quicker to the point. And obviously that's something AI does very well. Another issue I think AI has at least had in the past is the shortness of memory. So if I would try to write a book that is multiple chapters long, is there a risk that, the AI loses its way and starts repeating itself and dropping the instructions?
Okay. So the technical term for that is called hallucinating. And AI hallucinates. In other words, you give AI a prompt. You say, I want to write a book on this topic. Give me 10 suggested titles and subtitles, and put the titles in bold so it's easier for me to read it. And it'll do it. And you keep going, talking back and forth. You ask a question, which is a prompt, and AI gives you the answer. And then all of a sudden, it'll give you some weird answer. You say, what the heck's going on? Where have you been all my life? Like you've just gone crazy. And so so you're right, but it's getting less and less of a problem because AI is getting smarter and smarter and is remembering things from long ago.
Yeah.
At the beginning of each chapter, I actually repeat everything. So when I come to chapter 2, I'll say, now remember, we're in the midst of writing a book on this topic. You've given me 10 suggested titles, and this is the one I've chosen. This is the subtitle I've chosen. In other words, I copy and paste a lot of the instructions from the first chapter and put it in, and that prevents hallucinating.
Right. And so you then kind of summarize the first chapter as well and kind of say, and by the time you're at chapter 5, you say, so this is the name of the book. This is what we've written about chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now please write chapter 6.
Yes. And here's the funny thing. When you don't think it'll remember, it does. Like I said, I have a sore in this part of my shoulder. What should I do? And he said, go into your sauna and put your shoulder closer to the heat.
Hmm.
And I said, how do you know I have a sauna? He said, well, a year and a half ago, you told me that your sauna wasn't working and I helped you fix it. And I said, and you remember from a year and a half ago? And yet sometimes you forget 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, it is so interesting when you look at AI, and obviously I'll open up the memory part of ChatGPT occasionally and go through and purge things where I'm like, this you don't need to remember, and you see these things that it does remember. It's like, wow, did I discuss this? And it is crazy the amount of information it gathers on you. And it's amazing as an entrepreneur. I'm very happy that it stores that information because it allows me to make better decisions and have a better conversation. But for entrepreneurs that are writing, I mean, you've helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people publish their books. What's one like mindset issue that you kind of see keeps coming back over and over that you have to coach people past to get them to actually succeed with this?
This is very sad. The number one cause of failure is low self-esteem, enhanced by other people who put them down. So I'll just give examples. A woman with low self-esteem will be ridiculed by her husband. You writing a book? What are you an expert on? And then she gives up. Or a guy will be at work and he has a certain position at work, maybe assistant general manager or something. And people higher up will say, you writing a book? Look where you are in the hierarchy of this company. You're low down. You're a nobody. Boy, I'd love to read your book just to tear it apart. And then they get frightened and don't want to finish their book. Or they just can't get out of their own way.
How do you help them get past that? What do you do for someone who is being ridiculed?
What I have learned is the absolute best way to raise somebody's self-esteem is to have them produce a result. Mm-hmm. You can't raise someone's self-esteem by having them buy a lottery ticket and then it wins. If they didn't do anything. Mm. But if they have a goal, even a tiny goal, Daniel, and they achieve it, they feel wonderful because they did it. Mm. And so wherever they are, I give them the next step. I say, okay, right, you've done these 19 things. The 20th thing only takes a few minutes. Let me explain it to you. And I coach them a bit. I egg them on. I do partially for them without them realizing it. And finally, they get the 20th thing done. They say, oh, that wasn't so difficult. I say, yeah. And the 21st one takes about 3 minutes. So let's do that one. And then they feel wonderful. But then I have to come back an hour or a week later because whoever put them down again. Mm-hmm. So that's the saddest thing is low self-esteem. They give up on themselves. I don't give up on them. Mm. I started on stage 42 years ago, May of 1983, but I started teaching how to write a book and then publishing their books 15 years ago. And I've had some people come back from one of the very earliest enrollments, like 14 or 15 years ago, finally come back and say, okay, I'm going to write my book for sure now. And then they do. So I never give up on them, even though they give up on themselves. Very sad. I wish in some sense you hadn't brought up that issue, but it's the truth.
And that's why you break it down to 100 steps, which means as I'm writing the book, I have 100 different wins. And it also speaks to why so many of the great mentors in the world say, only surround yourself with the right people, because if you're surrounded by 5 broke people, you will become the 6th. And by making those changes and having these micro wins, you can get there. Now, I think one of the big fears that a lot of people have when writing the book or writing a book is, what if no one reads it? What if it totally fails and it's out there and everyone sees that no one's buying my book? Well, what do you say to someone who comes to you with that fear?
Okay. So I'm going to talk about how-to books. I'm going to talk about nonfiction books. So that's typically, Daniel, what you would write about. You would write about how to hold successful workshops or how to create wealth. You'd write a how-to book. And how-to books sell well. They might sell 100 copies, 500 copies, because you have a big sway. Yours will sell several thousand copies. And if it sells, say, 5,000 copies, and you make, say, $10 on each book from Amazon, $10 times 5,000 is $50,000. That's nice. It's not going to change your life much, but it would change a person with a smaller sway. But they would, because they have a smaller sway, they wouldn't sell 10,000 copies. So the question is, who makes a lot of money selling the books only? And the answer is, it's people who are famous for something else. So Oprah's famous for holding a wonderful TV show.
Yeah.
And so if she wrote a book, everybody would buy it because she was famous on TV. If Bill Clinton wrote a book, if Warren Buffett wrote a book, if Brad Pitt or Meryl Streep wrote a book, then they'd sell millions of copies, whether the book was good quality or not. And so if you don't have much of a sway, and most of my clients and most of your clients, Daniel, fit into that category. They don't have much of a sway.
They're building the sway as we speak.
They're building their sway. That's true, but they don't have it when they write the book. Then they're not going to sell that many copies of the book, but they are going to be asked by their readers, please, I want more information on this. Can you please coach me? Or less expensively, I want more information. Can you please hold a workshop on this? And that's how you make money.
And so the key is not, like, say, for an entrepreneur who's writing a book, the key is not to make money off of the book. It's to be able to leverage the brand the books gives you to drum up business for your company.
I'll give you an example. When my daughter was young, she was overweight. And I was very frightened because childhood onset obesity is a big deal, child onset diabetes. I was very worried. And there was a doctor came to my town, big advertisement saying he was going to give a speech. So I attended. So he made money from giving a speech. And I liked the speech. And at the end, he did the foolish thing of saying, and at the back, you can go buy my book. And my daughter's life is worth more than $20. So I didn't buy his book. If he'd offered a workshop for $500, maybe I would have gone. But if he had offered private coaching, if he'd said, I will come to the home and teach mommy and daddy and the overweight child how to read labels on everything they have in their cupboard and their fridge and their freezer. And then the child decides which foods to keep. And then I'd go to a supermarket with mommy and daddy and child and help you read the labels and help you decide what to buy. And then I'll come back home with you and make dinner. And I only charge $25,000. I would have pushed people out of the way. I would have frisbeed my credit card over the heads of people in front of me in order to pay $25,000. And yet all he did was sell his book. And so some people, even medical doctors who have a big education, don't get how to use their book.
He's misunderstanding that the point of the book was not to sell it at the speech. The point of the book was to get people to come to the speech where he could drum up proper business.
Yes, or he could make bigger sales. That's right.
Yeah.
So if he charged $500 for a workshop, he could have sold 25, 30, 40 enrollments into his workshop. Well, $500 times 40 is $20,000. Or he could have sold me $20,000. I would have paid that to have him provide 1 day of service.
Which would have been like selling 1,000 books in that little auditorium.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But let's say we have one of you, I'm sure you've had students come to you, and just as you said, they say, I've had a book in my heart for 20 years. And if they come to you and say, my dream is to be like you, Raymond, a New York Times best-selling author, what is the process to go from little sway, new in the industry, and to write a book that could actually come out as a New York Times bestseller? And I don't mean the process of writing. We've already obviously talked about that. But let's say once I finish the book, how do we get it to the New York Times bestsellers list?
Daniel, occasionally an unknown person will write a book and it'll hit New York Times top 10. Really, really rarely. It's 1 out of a million. It's completely rare. The truth is that it's the book that elevates you so that you can sell other things. For example, I was filmed to the movie The Secret, and everybody who was in the movie The Secret is a friend of mine, and their sway skyrocketed after the movie The Secret came out. And they were able to go from selling their workshop for $99, €199, just small amounts, to charging $9,000 and getting hundreds of people into their workshop. And that's like writing a book. You have to have a giant sway in order for the book to sell, or for the workshop to sell, or for the retreat to sell. And the movie The Secret gave them that huge platform. And that's what got them the huge amount of money selling workshops.
Right. So it's kind of like rungs on a ladder. First, you write your first book. That gets you more attention, grows your business. And if you're lucky, that might get you on a movie like The Secret, which means you've climbed the ladder. And now the next time you give out a book, you have more sway. So you can make a bigger book.
But more likely than getting on a blockbuster hit movie, The Secret, more likely is you write a book and people will want more. That's very, very likely. And you'll hold workshops, then you'll hold more workshops, then you'll hold bigger workshops at a higher tuition, and you will create your own sway so that when you write your next book, you will be able to announce to your large database that you've written a book, and the book will sell, and you'll make money selling your book. But more likely than that,
and then that brings even more business back to you, grows your sway further, and it becomes this positive spiral. And maybe one day we'll be like you, 147 books later, and building a sway that then grows exponentially. So that's really cool. Now, a question I get a lot from people in our community is, should they self-publish or should they find a book publisher? What are the pros and cons?
Okay. So I've had several books published by big New York City publishers, and I don't recommend it because they don't do anything. They really don't. They ask me, do I have a podcast? Am I on stage? Do I write an article for the local newspaper? Like, they want to know what power I have to sell the book. And they decide whether to publish the book based on how much power I have, which means they do almost nothing. And one book that I wrote, Double Your Income Doing What You Love, it was published by John Wiley and Sons. After a year, I had sold more copies at the back of my workshops than they sold to all bookstores in North America and Amazon. And so I said, I'm not happy. And they said, well, most of our authors aren't happy. What's your grudge? And I said, well, you're not doing anything. And they said, well, that's why we asked you what sway you have. And so the option they gave me was to buy my contract back. The contract that I signed, I could buy my contract back and buy all the remaining inventory of unsold books back, which I did. And so I really don't recommend that you send 100 copies of your book to 100 of the major publishers, because you'll just get 100 rejection letters. They really only want people, not who write good books, people who have an audience. That's who they
want. Who are going to sell the book for them.
That's right. Now, there's another issue. When I first started doing this and then listed my clients' published books on Amazon, I didn't do a good job because I'd never done it before. I thought you just go to Amazon, fill out the form, and your book's listed. And it was, but it didn't sell. And what I found out was all the tricks of the trade. And this is something, this will shock you, Daniel. Even though you're well known that big way, I think this will shock you. And that is, there isn't just Amazon. There's lots of Amazons. And indeed, there's 11 English speaking Amazons. There's Amazon.com for the United States. There's Amazon.ca for Canada, Amazon.co.uk for England. There's 11 of them. And here's the shock. They don't talk to each other. So if you self-published a book on Amazon.com, which you think of, it's the big Amazon, the .com, I couldn't buy it because I couldn't find it. When I go to Amazon.com, it redirects me to Amazon.ca because they think I'm a moron. And so they only let me talk to Amazon.ca because I'm a Canadian. And then when I look for your book, I can't find it because they don't talk to each other. And so I've learned that you have to list the book on all 11 English-speaking Amazons. And so that's like one trick of the trade, and I know dozens of them. So if you...
Well, we have that problem here in Sweden. I mean, we are Amazon.se, which is hypothetically a Swedish Amazon. But of course, we buy English books all the time, but a lot of them, as you say, are not listed there.
That's right. And so there's lots of tricks of the trade. And if you don't know them, yes, you can self-publish, but it won't work for you.
If the big publisher is bad and self-publishing is too difficult, what do I do?
I do it for you. And the full thing from birth to grave. I teach you how to write the book and I publish it for you. I also give my clients an award. And so they don't say, I wrote a book. They say, I'm the award-winning author of my published book.
And so what are you doing differently as a publisher compared to, for example, a Simon & Schuster or John Wayne & Sons?
Okay. I give them an official book launch. And most people don't know what that is. They know when a movie is made, it has a world premiere.
Yeah.
But when you write a book, you don't get a world premiere, you get an official book launch. But the truth is you don't. Like I told you, my New York Times top 10 best-selling book, Chicken Soup for the Parent Soul, I did not get a book launch and I did not get any award. So I give a book launch to every single one of my clients, and it's a Zoom event, and we make a video for them. We send it to them. It's all done very pretty, and they can post that video on their website or on social media, and they can show a picture of their award. I give them lots of things that other publishers don't give because they're my client. Like they're more like a friend than a number.
And so what does a book launch do for you as an author? What's the benefit of having a proper book launch?
Well, it's the publicity and the prestige. Here's an example. I tell my clients as they're writing their book to post on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, post every day. And they'll say, every day? Why? And I say, because Coca-Cola advertises every day, and they're the #1 best-selling drink in the world, even bigger than water. More people buy Coke than buy water. And they said, but I've got nothing new to say on the second day. And I say, either does Coke. When you look at a billboard, it just says drink Coke, or sometimes it just says Coke. And they have a billboard and they have bench ads and they advertise on every radio show and every TV show, and they don't say anything new. And finally, I clobber my clients over the head enough that they post on social media. They don't do it every day. But sometimes they say, I don't even know what to post. And so I say to them, okay, here's a post. I am the author of the upcoming book. And then you put the title of your book. And then you put the cover of the book, because I teach them to get a cover immediately so they can get some free publicity. And then this is wonderful. I hold a 3-day workshop as part of my program, a 3-day workshop where I personally teach them how to write their book in 3 days. They don't finish the book in 3 days, but I teach them in 3 days how to write it. And they get
right. You teach them the principles, the 100 steps. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And then I say to them, write this down word for word, and this is what you should post tonight. My publisher is spending 3 days with me to make sure my book is amazing. and they write it down and they post it word for word. And all their friends say, I knew you were writing a book, but you already have a publisher and your publisher's spending 3 days with you. It's insane. And they get lots of pre-orders for it. But on their own, they would never post anything. The opposite of branding is hiding. And inadvertently, they hide by not posting anything.
So you start by helping them build the brand and already start getting the advantage that we want with the book is to build clients and interest and differentiating ourselves. What do you do differently than on like the book sales themselves, getting it out into bookstores and Amazon, and like what's the difference between you and these other publishers?
Okay, so here's what I've noticed. There's an easy way to sell lots and lots of books. And then there's a really difficult way to sell a tiny bit more. The easy way is to post on Amazon because Amazon sells 99% of all books that are sold anywhere in the world. It's easy and free to post on Amazon. It's really difficult to send 1,000 salesmen to bookstores around the world to try to get the book approved in each different bookstore or each different chain. And I don't do it. If I'm going to help my client sell 100 books with ease on Amazon, or spend a gigantic amount of energy and time and resources to sell 101 books, forget it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Everybody wishes their book could be in every bookstore in the world, but you get almost no sales. And also, bookstores have a rule that came from England called full recourse. And full recourse means that when a physical bookstore buys your book, they can send it back and you have to reimburse them. And the reason is that it allows bookstores to take a chance on unknown authors. Otherwise, bookstores would just carry the obvious books. They'd carry the Bible, they'd carry Harry Potter, they'd carry just obvious books, and they wouldn't take a chance on anyone else's. And so if you finally make a sale to a bookstore and they've got 5 of your books there, a month or 5 months or a year later, they can say, come and get them and buy them back. But Amazon doesn't, because the way we list it, it's print on demand. And so they don't have any inventory. But a physical bookstore can't do print on demand.
No, of course, they need to have it in the store and sell it when someone walks in. That makes sense. We end every episode with a rapid fire round. So I'm going to throw some questions at you. And then, you respond with the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, let's do it. What is the worst advice you ever gave and that you had to unlearn?
Oh my gosh. The worst advice. The worst advice was long ago. I didn't believe people had such low self-esteem. And I would say dismissive things like, oh, get over yourself and start writing. And I wish I didn't. And it was very dismissive and very pompous of me. And I'm sorry to the universe.
And you had to unlearn that and move on. All right. So what is one unpopular belief about wealth that you'll never apologize for?
Everyone I know who's wealthy is a nice person. The common view from people who are not wealthy is you have to be mean or dirty or lie or do something untoward to be wealthy. But I'm wealthy and I'm a nice guy, and all my friends are wealthy and they're nice.
I agree. I've seen the same thing. The most generous people I know are also the wealthiest. And it's easy to say that, hey, because you're wealthy, it's easy to be generous. But I see that they donate a higher percentage of their wealth as well. And they spend more time helping others than I see those who aren't successful. So I definitely agree. What message would you hope that people would still remember, even though you're not able to say it?
Well, just as I can't say it, I can replay old videos, or I can hire a great speaker like Daniel Wood to teach for me.
All right. So what would you hope that we'd say on your behalf if there was one important message?
On my deathbed, I want people to walk by saying, you lived up to your word. You really did help me. You said that if I enrolled in your program and trusted you, that you would bend over backwards to help me. That's what I want.
I like that. What's a dream that you have that you still haven't dared to chase?
Oh, man. Oh, I still occasionally upset my wife, and I need to stop doing that. She's ill right now, and I've got lots of good husband points taking care of her. And so she really appreciates me for that. I'm getting lots of husband points. I want to get husband points every day, and I don't want to upset her anymore.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that. What is a quote that keeps you grounded when life feels chaotic?
I know the answer. No men fall to earth unassembled. Snowmen fall to earth unassembled. You see, when there's snow, adults look at the problems. They say, oh my gosh, I'm going to hurt my back shoveling the snow. But children see snowmen. And so when life isn't kind to you, you need to look for the silver lining. You need to look for what's wonderful about it, as opposed to doing what the masses do, look for what's not wonderful.
So, what's next for you in the next 12 months? What's one big thing you're looking forward to?
Oh, man. I have a retreat coming up, and it's on relationships. And I've hired the number one most famous, most amazing relationship guy in the world, Dr. John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And he's not just coming for an hour, he's coming for 3 full days to teach. We're going to co-teach together. He's one of my dearest friends. He's doing it. I mean, I'm paying him for it, but he's doing it as a favor, because if he actually charged me his regular rate for 3 days, I couldn't afford it.
Wow, that's amazing. That is going to be really, really cool. Your students are going to absolutely love that.
Yes.
Raymond, I really appreciate you coming, and I appreciate everyone who listened. Our mission is always to make sure that our students can connect with the best speakers in the world, and that's why we asked you to come here and teach. And for those who want to continue to work with you, who want to continue to learn, we like spoiling our audience. So I know you've prepared something really special for anyone that's listened this far and learned this much.
Yes. If you go to Aaron.com, but you have to spell my name correctly, it's Aaron. If you go to Aaron.com/your gift, no punctuation, just Aaron.com/your gift, I will give you a copy of a book that I wrote that is in the For Dummies series. I'm actually the only person in the whole world, Daniel, who's ever got a book published in the For Dummies series and the Chicken Soup series. No one else in the whole world's ever been able to achieve that. And it's branding small business for dummies. And why is it my gift to you? Because it's not available for sale anywhere in the world. I refused. After the book was finished, I realized it was so valuable. There was so much content on how to brand yourself, how to elevate your brand, how to elevate your income, that I didn't want to let it go for $20. And so I wouldn't let them put a barcode on the bottom of the back cover. And so the book can't be sold by any bookstore in the world. It can't be sold by Amazon. But I'm giving it to you at no charge. Just go to Aaron.com/your gift, and you can get it. No charge, no obligation. You don't have to give me a credit card. It's completely free, no obligation.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. We'll add the link here in the show notes so everyone can go and grab that at Aaron.com with 2 A's/your gift. Raymond, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll speak to you soon.
And I want to say something to all your listeners.
Yes.
I want you to understand how lucky you are to be led by Daniel Wood. He is one of my heroes. He is unbelievably honest. He's completely straight. He doesn't spin stuff. He tells you straight, and he has your best interests in heart. Does he earn money at it? Of course he does. Everybody in business earns money at it. But Daniel goes way beyond that to also protect you and make sure that you're treated well. He has a wonderful customer service department to make sure you're treated well. And he takes it really personally that you do well. And I admire him, I honor him, and I'm honored to be in his sphere as well. Thank you for doing such a good job in the world, Daniel.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And right back at you. The service you've done for our students have been really, really powerful, and we just get raving reviews. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation today with Raymond Aaron, please make sure you follow and subscribe right now, because we've got even more world-class mentors coming your way. And because we believe in rewarding action takers like yourself, I've got a special ending gift here for you. You can claim your free ticket to our upcoming Your Path to Financial Freedom, where you'll learn directly from global experts like Robert Kiyosaki, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Jack Canfield, John DeMartini, John Azareth, Janet Atwood, Marcy Shimoff, and many other absolutely amazing speakers. You'll be able to connect with our community and design your path to true financial independence. Just go to swedishwealthinstitute.com/events so you can find the next event in your time zone, because we do time zones both in Europe, North America, and over Asia Pacific. So you can find the next one that fits your schedule. Now, make sure you don't miss our next Swedish Wealth Institute podcast episode, because it features Ron White. Ron is the two-time U.S. memory champion. He's going to teach you how to unlock your memory, accelerate your learning, and think faster. Skills that will transform the way you work, learn, and lead. So please subscribe, share this episode with Raymond, with anyone who you think needs it, and I'll see you at the summit and at the next event. I'm Daniel Wood, and this is the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast, where your journey to financial freedom begins. Meet Ron White, two-time U.S. memory champion, a man who turned the limits of the human brain into a world record performance. He memorized a full deck of shuffled cards in just 1 minute.
When people can watch an Instagram video and in 2.5 minutes learn something, that's when it took off. And here's the reason I asked you someone you love. The more action and the more emotion involved in the picture, the more likely you are to remember it. I gave my mom's eulogy this way. I wrote out the 15 stories I wanted to tell about my mom's life. I imagined them on 15 pieces of furniture when I'm giving her eulogy. Because it's whatever you want to remember, turn it into a picture, because your mind remembers pictures. And you do that, you will be astounded at how fast and efficiently you can. But here's the key to memory. There's 5 steps that I teach. You got to be, you can focus your brain with